Welcome to Wildlife Conversations. I am your host, Jen Ritchie, and I'm so glad you're joining me tonight. I met my guest tonight on the banks of the Snake River in Wyoming on a beautiful fall day and spent several hours, maybe like 2 or 3 hours, with a family of 7 otters. He is based in Seattle, but traveling all over the place. If you follow his account, you can notice that. Tetons, Yellowstone, India, Africa. He is always somewhere. So I want to welcome my guest, Phillip Scrimshaw. It's so nice to have you, Phillip.
Yeah, it's so nice to be here, Jen. It's great to see you again.
I
Last time we
know.
saw each other was a few years ago, so I'm
I
really
know.
excited to be here.
It's fun. I know I told you before we got on, it feels like I see you a lot because of Instagram, but face to face, we haven't seen each
Yeah,
other
yeah.
since 2023. So that was a great day. And Michelle Osterhuis is joining me tonight to co-host
Hello.
again. You all have seen her in the first episode, for just the premiere episode. She was
That
with
was
me
it.
in Wildlife Conversations when we
Yep.
launched. And we met that day too. So it's really fun to have us all back together. And I just want to thank everybody for joining me because I know you have so many other things to do. I know people have been on spring break and people are working and the weather's crazy. So just thanks so much for joining us live tonight. And if you're here, just say hi in the chat. Tell me where you're listening from. Say hi to Phillip, say hi to Michelle, and also be thinking of questions that you can add to the Q&A later, because we would love to have live questions for Phillip, for me, or Michelle, just whatever you're thinking about tonight. And we just love to chat. It's just good to be together. Really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So that day we met, we had about 5 or 6 of us just happened to gather together and see this family of 7 and chase them. Not
Well,
chase them because they were on the other side, but try to keep up with them. So
yeah.
that was, what do you remember about that, Phillip?
Yeah, that was actually the very first time I'd ever photographed wild otters before. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but they are fast. They
So
are
fast.
so fast in the water. And even when they're on land too, they're always, jumping all over each other and
I
moving
know.
all over the place. So in terms of photographing them, they're really challenging. And they were going down river towards, I think it was Jackson Lake Dam is where they were headed.
Mhm.
And we were just, trying to keep up with them and trying to get whatever shots we could when they popped their heads out of the water. And man, that was a challenge. And I think
It
after,
was.
yeah, like an hour or two, we just like, all right, like this is all we're gonna get. And
Yeah.
I think we all got some really good shots. But yeah, that was a physical fitness test for photographing otters.
It was, and just like the challenge of the water and the
The
light.
lighting.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
The
lighting was
lighting was awful
really
because it
hard.
kept
Yeah.
shining off the water, and then they're oily. They're super oily. So it was just, yeah, it was a little bit insane trying to capture it.
I have to say that, but it was still like a dream moment for me because I
It
had
was so
been,
fun.
oh, just to see that many together and the interactions and the swimming. And it was like they didn't care to keep moving fast. They were fine with us being next to us. And it was so wonderful. And I met meeting great people. I
Yeah.
came away from that day just like it was so nice to meet really great people to shoot with. And we've all like follow each other on Instagram now. And Claire
Yep.
Claire from London just contacted me this last week to say hello. So it was just it was a great moment.
It was
Those
fun.
moments don't always
Yeah.
happen.
And it
So,
Yeah, I
wasn't
don't
it
think.
wasn't super crowded or anything,
No.
right.
with like a bear jam or anything. Like you could actually have conversations with the people next to you. And yeah, it was just a really good time. And I think, every time I go to the Tetons, it's always the people more than the subjects that make the trip for me.
Yeah.
And hanging out with just really nice people is always just a treat for me.
Yeah, it's a bonus for sure. So Phillip, you are based in Seattle
Mhm.
and photography is not your full-time job, but you have found in the last 4 years this amazing passion that such lit you on fire, filled you up. And so tell me a little bit how you started that, found that again, and what was your journey towards picking up that camera?
Yeah, I will say growing up, I was never very creative as a person. I always sucked in art class. I can't draw anything more than a stick figure. So, finding like a creative medium for me was something that was not really expected or planned.
Yeah.
I kind of discovered photography maybe in the opposite way that a lot of other people do. A lot of people will pick up the camera and then suddenly start to go places and then, expand on the trips that they go on. I had booked a trip to Africa
Mm.
in the middle of the pandemic. So for the longest time, I wasn't sure if it was actually going to happen or not, if I was actually going to end up going. But when the pandemic hit, I spent a lot of time at home. So I would just kind of turn on these nature documentaries as kind of background noise while I would be, working at home. And I kind of got really into them, and it was like, oh, like, hey, like, this is really cool. And I'd always kind of loved animals and nature and stuff growing up as a kid, but life happens and you kind of get distracted from that. So during the pandemic, I was watching these nature documentaries. I was like, hey, like, this looks really cool. Like, wouldn't it be nice if I could go to Africa and like see these places that I used to, watch on shows when I was a kid? So I booked a trip to Africa, and then I said, okay, well, I want to have some good photos, because you're going on a safari and take some good pictures. So I bought a small little crop sensor camera and the biggest lens I could afford at the time, which was like a 70 to 300. So it was not giant, but so I went there and, I took photos, and, they were pretty much, not fantastic photos by any means. They look like what you would take with your iPhone, but just with a little nicer quality camera. But I kind of was like, oh, like, I'm really into this. Like, I really like taking pictures of animals and their environments and just, everything about that. So photography just kind of came to me after that trip. And then I was like, okay, what else can I shoot? Where else can I go? What else can I photograph? And that's kind of led me on this whirlwind all around the world of, all right, where's the next destination I can go to? What's the next subject I want to chase? What type of gear am I going to need to make that happen? And, take the photos that I see other people get. And it's been a long rabbit hole. It's been a really fast rabbit hole because I've only been shooting for about 4 years now. But
a fun one.
No, so it's been really nice. I would say that that very first trip to Africa, I didn't really go in with expectations of becoming a photographer or anything after that. I just wanted to take a couple cool pictures to show friends and family. But after that, I was like, like photography, I'm really into this. So
you got the bug.
I got the bug.
Easy to do. Yeah.
Everybody has a story of how they got the bug, but once you have it, it's got you for life.
I know, and it's trouble. Like, you're in trouble, and other people don't understand it, which is fine because we have each other.
I have so many people that ask me, you're going back to Africa again? Weren't you just there? It's like, no, but it's different this time. There's so many things I could do differently. So
it's different every day you're there. I mean, you think how many safaris can I go out on? Well, all day, every day I can, and I will see something different every single time.
No, I mean,
you both have been, and I have not been, so it's gonna be fun learning from both of you.
No, it's a new, like you said, Michelle, a new adventure every day. You never know when you wake up what you're going to see today. And I think that goes for, not just Africa, just anywhere. Like, hey, what are you going to see today? What are you going to photograph? Nobody knows. You could see the most incredible thing of your life, or you could see nothing that day. And I think that's the excitement part that captures us as photographers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this isn't your full-time job, or is it? Like, I can't, like, I gotta ask, like, what are you doing, Philip? Like, it looks like you're doing a lot of cool travel, and you've got some tours coming up, it looks like, as well. So have you kind of transformed into this full time and kind of left your old Philip behind?
I'll admit I still work a normal 9 to 5 that has definitely allowed me to do some of the traveling that I've been fortunate to be able to do. That isn't really long-term what I'm hoping to do. I've made this, discovery that this is my passion and that this is what I really want to be doing. So, long-term, I'm kind of shifting more to take this a little bit more professionally, selling prints and, creating, taking other people with me because I think I've been very fortunate and blessed to see and photograph a lot of cool, amazing things. And I'd really like the opportunity to take some other people with me and be able to share that experience with others. I think we're kind of slowly transitioning. We're not 100% all the way there, but it's in the works. So it's hard sometimes when you're working that 9 to 5 and you're just like, man, I wish I was out photographing a lion or something right now instead of in a spreadsheet. But
well, you can't get lions in Seattle, but I know you live in Seattle, and let me tell you, like, that is my dream location. If I'm going to go pretty much anywhere in the United States, it's going to be Seattle, Oregon, for the coast, for the mountains. Albeit I love landscape as well, but just some pretty amazing opportunities out there. So are you shooting when you're at home? Are you taking people out when you're at home, or
I do shoot at home. I would say that I probably don't shoot as much as I should. Life just happens. But I've taken some other people out and done some local workshops as well. For the most part, I'll do like kind of eagles and stuff. Seattle's like at certain times of the year, this is a really great place to shoot eagles.
Yeah, very much.
A lot of people go to Alaska. I would actually make the argument that you should come here if you're really into bald eagles. And in a couple weeks, I know you'll get a kick out of this, Michelle. I go up to the San Juans, multiple times this summer, and I shoot our local killer whales all the time.
I know that's Michelle's dream.
Yeah,
you're killing me.
When I was thinking of that today, I was thinking of you guys, and I'm like, oh, this is a great pair because we're gonna talk about whales.
Yeah, no,
I've been out to the San Juans 5 times now, and
oh wow,
it is just, yep. There's just nothing better out there with my orcas.
No, they're such a treat. And it's funny, I've lived, born and raised Seattle, lived here my entire life, and I had never really seen them until a few years ago, once I actually started doing photography. And then I went on a couple of watching trips, and man, you want to talk about tough to photograph. Whales are hard to photograph.
Oh, they're hard because you just don't know where they're going to come up ever.
You don't know where they're going to come up.
Yeah.
They sometimes they'll go on dives and they'll sleep for 15 minutes. You're like, all right, where are the whales?
Yeah, where are they going? It's so fun to go out to Fox Island and go out to Lime Kiln Lighthouse and watch them come by the pass there. Oh, it's just dreamy, beautiful sunset. You got a lighthouse off to your right, you got the ocean off to your left, and just some whales coming on through, and you're just like, if this is heaven, this is the definition.
If I was really brave, I would get out on a kayak and go out there, because you'll see videos of kayakers with just whales.
100%, yeah.
And I'm just like, not brave enough for that, but it's really cool. So I'm blessed to be in an area that has a diversity of wildlife, especially really cool, unique wildlife like that. Especially because like killer whales and stuff, not a lot of people can just go ahead and shoot that in their backyard. So for me it's really a treat every time I'm able to go out there. So I'm very blessed in that way.
Yeah.
And you're a Sony shooter, a fellow Sony shooter, right? I think Jen is the anomaly in this trio.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sony all day. I upgraded to an A1 and a 400 2.8 about 2 years ago.
Okay.
But for the longest time, I shot with an A7R4, which is kind of the high megapixel body that Sony has. And I was shooting a 200 to 600 for the most part, because I basically told myself I want the highest megapixels and the longest lens I could possibly get, and that will be perfect for wildlife photography. And spoiler alert, it was not. There's a lot more that goes into photography than just getting the expensive body and expensive lens. So I really kind of took my time to figure out what I was kind of doing wrong, and then I said, okay, I'm ready for the big boys now. And then I upgraded to an A1 and a 400 2.8, and my wallet is crying, but it was worth it. So it's definitely
about that recently.
Yeah, Jen was a bad influence on me about 2 months ago, and I upgraded I was struggling between the 600 and the 400. And ultimately chose the 400 just because I like to handhold and I don't want to always be on a tripod. And the 600 I felt like would kind of mandate some kind of tripod or monopod, so went to the 400 to 2.8, and my wallet is screaming at me a little bit too. But I mean,
I was like, it's a savings account, Michelle. If something bad happens, you can just cash it.
Phillip, she's a bad influence.
As soon as someone described it like that to me, I was like, oh, okay, savings account.
No, but it's a big decision. You're spending that amount of money, and I think a lot of people, it's either the 400 or the 600. And it's like, okay, you can really only afford one, so you got to choose right, because you're not going to get a second one. And so I stressed out a lot about it. And I think if I was shooting mostly in Yellowstone, I would have gone for a 600, but I go to so many different other places that I'm just like, okay, the 400 probably is better for me. And man, that 2.8 can just like obliterate a background, and it's just so good. So I'm really happy with my decision.
Well, and you can put that 1.4 or 2 times on it to get your 560 or more, and you get your 600 just by putting a 1.4 on it with an A1 with those megapixels. I mean, you really get both in one. You only lose a few f-stops, and it's still incredibly sharp.
Yeah. But I think brands, for the most part, they're all kind of interchangeable. I've never seen like a Canon photo that I haven't liked, or like a Nikon photo. I mean, all the gear, you can shoot anything that you want, and you still come away with incredible shots. So
the photography in the photography department these days, Canon, Nikon, Sony, even Fuji, and who else am I trying to think of that has that all in one? But anyway,
OM system probably. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get some
Yeah,
incredible.
we try to emphasize, because I know, everyone shoots so differently and shoots different systems. So it's really about knowing that camera, finding
Yep.
what fits you the best, finding the system that fits you the best, and
Yep.
the budget. Like, I've bought lots of used things, and that's how I kind of got started with a Rebel, and then bought it, moved used all the way up. So it's really what fits you, fits your budget and what you're shooting. So I think, it's just so unique to hear what fits everybody, and like to see your work. And everybody has such beautiful work with all these brands, like you said, Michelle. And I think the other thing that I want to touch on is that just the ability to shoot local and find local, Philip. And I love that you shoot local too. And because I know a lot of people that listen to this are like, but I can't go to Africa, or I can't go here. And I think people really appreciate that, that you're shooting local and finding joy locally as well. And there's so much to shoot. And I know I complain about Indiana because I love moose so much, but I do find things here, and just was out the other night with egrets, and the pelicans are here, and it's just really finding that joy, and just being out is the best. But I want to make sure people hear that, because I know people are shooting locally and can only shoot local sometimes. So, but I also know you just got back from one of your favorite places. So tell us a little bit about that trip. Where did you go? And tell your favorite place.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it is honestly probably my favorite place in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just in the Maasai Mara a few months back. I was back in November. That trip was very unexpected and just happened last minute. I just had an opportunity come up to get there, so I think I booked a flight on like a Tuesday and then flew out on a Thursday.
Oh my
So
goodness.
Wow.
it was
Okay.
very last minute. But no,
Yes.
it's incredible. If for those who don't know, if you've ever watched a video of Africa, or you think about Africa in your mind, you probably think about those wide open plains of East Africa. And when you think about, the documentaries or the photos, or heck, like the Lion King or something, a lot of those are filmed or based off of the Maasai Mara in Kenya, which is just this incredible reserve. It's part of the Mara Serengeti ecosystem. So everybody thinks of the Serengeti as, the big place in Africa. The Serengeti kind of continues on into the Mara, which is on the Kenyan side, kind of how the Tetons and Yellowstone are all part of the same ecosystem, just kind of different parks. But the Mara is it's incredible. Everything you could possibly ask for in wildlife photography, in terms of light, in terms of scenery, background, the subjects. There's pretty much every type of subject in Africa that you can imagine is there in the Mara. It's one of the best places to see all of the big five. So the big five, when you talk about safaris in Africa, is usually kind of these big keystone species that everybody wants to see. You have lion, elephant, leopard, buffalo, and rhino. And the Mara is one of the best places in the world to see all of that. So I've been many times, and it always delivers. And I think, if I know, like, hey, I just want to go on a trip and come away with as many incredible photos as I want, I'm going to the Mara, because I know that I'm going to come away with incredible shots. And yeah, I went, and it was probably the best trip I've ever had to the Mara. I was just in the Mara for like 2 weeks, and I just saw the coolest stuff all the time. I saw a leopard with cubs. I'd never seen leopards with cubs before.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, lots of babies. I got there's a very special cheetah that I saw there that had cubs as well, for me at least, and I was the very first person to actually see her with those cubs. That was a really special encounter for me, at least, just because they're one of my favorite subjects when I'm there in the Mara to see. So seeing the cheetah with cubs is really enjoyable. Yeah, and just every day, just photographing something different. Never knew what I was going to see. A lot of the times we just say, all right, whatever we see, we see. We don't really have a plan. You just drive around, and whatever you come across, that's what you photograph. And so it's a very laid back, nice environment that everybody, I think, who goes there can come away and say, like, yeah, I can't wait to return here again the next time. So yeah, as soon as I leave, I'm already planning my next trip. That's how it goes with me.
And does it feel like you're just shooting all day? So like some days, like in Yellowstone, it could feel like you're going a few days without shooting. But do you feel like that in Africa ever?
No, absolutely not. Like, so I would say there are moments when things lull, but for the most part, there's always something happening somewhere. You just have to be willing to put in the time and the effort to go get it. So for the most part, a lot of safaris that people go on, they'll go on like a morning safari until like 11:30 noonish, come back to camp, have lunch, then go out again in the afternoon. and that drives me insane.
Oh, really?
I know that I'm not photographing anything at the lunch table. I didn't come here to take a nap in my tent. You know, like there's something happening out there and I'm not photographing.
He's my people. You're my people, Phillip. I never came back for lunch. They always packed us a lunch so that we never.
See, I'm thinking of one that goes back and like I can sit for a minute.
No.
No.
The thing about the Mara is that, you know, a lot of people think like, okay, like it gets too hot and then animals are all sleeping and nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's something that a fallacy that a lot of people believe. And it's so untrue. There's always something happening. Yeah, the light may not be fantastic for photos at that moment, but you might see a cheetah hunt at 1 PM and it's sure come away with incredible photos that you're not seeing if you're back at camp, you know? So I like to go out all day just because you don't know what you're going to see. And yeah, it's really long days. And sometimes you say like, hey, let's just find a tree and take a nap for an hour with lunch. And that's fine too. But, you know, there's always something to be photographing, always something to be seen. There's drama around every corner. So you might as well be out there to go find it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I think, Michelle, do you want to, he's going to show some photos, but you can go ahead and ask.
So let's talk about your favorite species to shoot. You mentioned cheetah and leopards. So I think you must like the cats. So maybe do we have an image?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring
this
up
leopard. I think it is.
Yeah.
It's probably a leopard.
Yes, it's very dramatic.
Oh, is it got stuff on its face like it just had supper? Oh, it's having supper.
Yeah,
it doesn't have stuff on its face.
I hate to say I love it because I feel bad, but I do love it.
Yeah, no, it's so that was just on my Mara trip. This is a very famous leopard in the Mara. Her name is Leluca. And she is the leopard that had a cub. And so I had known before I went on that trip that she had a cub. And we found a spot where she was with the cub, and then she kind of left the spot and she started just walking. And the thing about like cats, when they move around there and they're walking, you know that they're looking for something. They want to find something to hunt. So when she goes for hours, and we just followed her, I think from like 9 AM until this moment, which was at like 3 or 4 PM. So if I was one of those people that had gone back to camp, I would have missed this shot. So this happened later in the afternoon. So she was going around, she was looking for something to hunt, and eventually she staked out this warthog burrow. And the warthogs all just kind of ran out, and there she was, and she just snagged one just like that. And I think for me, this is a really cool image because leopards they're such secretive cats, they're such secretive animals. They don't like to be out in the open. They kind of like to slink around in the shadows and ambush the prey. So to be able to photograph an animal like this hunting out in the open was really cool. I have seen, you know, leopards multiple times before on safari, but I've never seen one actually make a kill. A lot of times you'll find a leopard because they've already dragged a kill up a tree. So you're like, okay, well, this leopard killed something, now it's eating it. But to actually see it make the kill and see it, you know, kind of move and, you know, with that much focus in its eyes as it's trying to go after something. Basically, the difference between her child going hungry for a day or not was her being able to make this kill. So it was really cool to be able to see that and photograph that. And after she made the kill, she had to, you know, kind of drag it away so that lions or hyenas wouldn't see where it was. And this is one of the shots that she's kind of dragging it away. So
that's what I was wondering, is if she was actually in the process of killing it right here, because that's what they do. They kind of asphyxiate their prey. They get their mouths wrapped around their neck so they can't breathe anymore. So it's an interesting photo because it sort of looks like she's maybe in the process of still making that happen, but also the way the body is, it looks like she's dragging it. So I wasn't sure which we were looking at.
Yeah, it's hard to say. A lot of times you see, like, I've seen so many videos of cats, you know, killing something, and then, you know, they get distracted by something, look the other way, and next thing you know, the prey like that you thought was dead just runs off the other direction. You're like, so hard to say, but I think at this point the warthog was pretty much gone. But it was really cool to be able to see this. And you know, it is kind of morbid in a sense. Nobody really loves. I'm not into like the blood and the gore and stuff and wildlife photography by any means. I don't shy away from it either. But I think, you know, it's so like all about the circle of life that this warthog had to die. but as a result, this leopard gets to eat, and on top of that, I know she has a cub who's going to benefit from the kill that she just made, and that cub is going to be able to grow up because she was able to do this. So I really think being able to see that, a full circle of life on display is really cool to photograph.
Did she have that? I'm curious. Did she have that cub hidden, like somewhere in a den somewhere? Because they got to watch it. We were watching a den of 3, and the very next day we came back, and the dad had killed all 3 because he wanted to mate, and she won't mate if there's no babies. So they do a good job of hiding them.
No, they really do. I mean, and cubs, are pretty aware of, the threats that they go under as well. So they'll stay put wherever they are, at that point. And eventually I think the next day or probably later that evening, she brought the cub back over to where she had made the kill, and we found them later together the next day.
Okay.
So it's really cool to see the dynamics between, mothers and the cubs that they're raising, and seeing dynamics in that way. I think in wildlife photography, those are the sorts of moments and interactions that I'm most fascinated by. So it was really cool to see. Oh, this is another shot.
You got the mountain behind it.
Yeah,
I did.
Phillip, like that's so hard to get. I mean, because a lot of the time that's covered. This is fantastic. So is this another favorite animal of yours? I know you love cats. Is an elephant another favorite?
It's funny because growing up, elephants were always my favorite animals. I have like elephant lamps, elephant figurines. Like
that's
growing up, elephants have always been my favorites. So it's funny, as I've gone more into photography, that maybe I've actually kind of focused away from elephants, maybe because it's been so overdone in my head. So this is in Amboseli National Park in Kenya as well. This was last March, so almost a year ago. Like you said, Michelle, the mountain there, so that's Mount Kilimanjaro. The mountain never plays nice for photos. I think I read on a report once, you can only see the mountain on average like 6 days out of the month. Because it's creating its own atmospherics, because it's so big, so it's always covered in clouds, and to see it out in the open is really hard. But this is why people go to this park. They want to see elephants because it's one of the best places to see elephants, and they want to have elephants against the mountains. So I've been to Amboseli many times and have never been able to pull this off until my most recent trip. And the mountain was out totally clearly. We were actually leaving the park this day. So it was kind of, whatever we see on the way out, that's what we see. There's a herd of elephants. There's a herd of elephants moving by, and the light was good, and it had that good morning light. And I really like this because I had this one bull that was kind of walking towards us. So you have the elephants in the back, but you also have the bull coming towards us. And I couldn't script it any better. Sometimes I look at this, I'm like, this isn't a real picture. This is AI or something. But I was there. I know what happened. I watched it. I have so many other photos and videos of it because I know it was real. So I think when I saw it, I put my camera down for a minute after I got a couple of these shots because I'm just like, man, I just got to savor this moment because I know how hard it is to see this. So just enjoy it for what it is.
Yes.
But it's one of my favorites. I'm really happy I got this.
Yeah, sometimes those moments just kind of take your breath away, and you have to just put your camera down.
Yeah, I'm constantly telling myself that because I think a lot of times I'm traveling to these cool places. I want to shoot, take everything you can. It's like, okay, think about where you are. Like, this is such an incredible place. To be able to see what you're seeing with your eyes is really cool. So just try and savor it, because I think these are the sorts of memories that, you have the photo to remind you of the moment, but you also want to have like your own memory of being like, I was here, I saw this. So I think it's really important sometimes to just put the camera down and just enjoy the scene for what it is.
Yeah, well, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and it looks healthy. I was in Amboseli a couple of years ago, and they were struggling with a really bad drought, and it was sort of awful, to be honest with you. And so that looks pretty healthy back there, which is great. It's great to see.
Yeah, it was a good time of year for them.
Look at that. Oh, they're hard to find.
I know this is one of your favorites. Yeah, very hard to find. There's only around 1,400 total in the world. So endangered, painted dog, African dog, right? Is that right?
Wild?
Yep.
So many different names for it.
Yeah, I think every photographer, if you talk to one, they have a muse. Everybody has that one subject, that one animal that has captured their heart, and you just want to photograph them until the day you die. And I think for me, at least, it's my wild dogs. I love them. I think I love them because You know, you see so much of our own domesticated dogs in them, but the lives that they live is just so dramatic. And you know, honestly, I was never really into the dogs for the longest time. I knew what they were. But during the pandemic, I picked up a documentary. It's called Dynasties. It's made by the BBC. It's, you know, they film a lot of, you know, nature documentaries, and you've probably seen a lot of the work that they've done. And they had one series, it was called Dynasties. And in the series, they focus on different subjects every episode, and one episode was dedicated exclusively to the wild dogs. And I remember watching it and not really being super into, you know, photography or anything. And I remember watching it and thinking, this is better than any TV episode of any show I've ever seen. Just the drama and the intensity that these dogs live it's like nothing else. And I was just so captivated by that episode that I said, wild dogs, that's what I want. I want to photograph these guys. And so now everywhere I go, even if I know that there's not a really good chance of seeing wild dogs, I'm just like, okay, but when was the last time you saw wild dogs? Like, is there a 1% chance I could see them? Is there a 2% chance? Yeah, so I booked a trip. This is in the Okavango Delta in Botswana. So I booked a trip to Botswana. I spent, I think, a week in one camp. And as soon as I landed in that camp, I told the guides, I said, I want dogs. I don't care how long we have to look. I don't care how long it's going to take. What we have to do, we're going to find these dogs. And so we searched for, I think, maybe 4 or 5 hours. And yeah, then we just rounded a corner, and one of my guides got out to step out on foot, I think to take a bathroom break or something. And then we just heard a bark, like almost like your dog would bark. And then we just kind of turned and looked, and all these wild dogs were just sitting here in a bush right there. We didn't even know they were there. And then it was like, oh my gosh.
You're shaking.
I think that's probably the closest I've ever come to tears in like doing wild. I just saw these guys and just looking at me, and they've captured my heart. So now every trip I book with the idea that maybe I'll find wild dogs. I love them so much. They're just so incredible.
So cool. That is so cool. I mean, they're effective predators, great family units. They're a really fascinating little, I mean, you don't even think about them. Until you mentioned, I'm like, I probably should think about them more, you know, but I just love the patterns and the spots and everything on them. They're so
big
beautiful.
ears.
Yes,
yeah.
big ears.
Those like satellite dish ears. Yeah.
Really cool. There's a fox with ears like that too, and I can't remember what the fox is called, but there's a fox in the Maasai Mara that has big ears like this.
There's a bat-eared fox.
That's what it is. Yeah, they've got these big radar ears too. They're cool.
Yeah.
Too.
I think the thing about the dogs though is that they are so endangered for lots of different reasons. Human wildlife conflict. You know, they will steal people's, you know, livestock all the time, and then, you know, as a result they get targeted afterwards, whether it be poisoned or, you know, killed for whatever reason.
Right.
They're also a lot kind of like wolves or our own domestic dogs. They're very prone to diseases. So a lot of times the dogs will greet each other by the mouth. So they get all excited, they say hi mouth to mouth, and then they spread diseases. So if, you know, one dog picks up distemper or rabies or something, and then he says hi to the entire rest of the pack, that pack is gone. Very easily. So I think it's the fact that they struggle so much that's part of the reason why they're so captivating to me, because I know how hard it is to find them and how every moment with them is so special, and being able to kind of, you know, address their plight and showcase them and the issues that they're facing to people who may not be familiar with them. I think is another reason why I'm really captivated by them.
Yeah, I love that, using your work to share their plight and help them. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, and you have been able to photograph some other threatened species too. So I think we have maybe a tiger, maybe a tiger image from India.
Yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
Was this in Ranthambore, or where was this, Philip?
No, this was we're going the whole circle. This is in
we have to show your beautiful work.
Not here. No, so this is in India. This is not in Ranthambore. This is in Bandhavgarh, which is in central India. So that's another very good place to see tigers. So I was in India last May to shoot tigers, and I don't know if anybody has seen social media. You know, they see amazing tiger photos and videos posted all the time, and maybe I was just misinformed, but I thought, okay, like I'm going to go to India and get all these cool photos that everybody else has gotten. Tigers are hard. They are so hard to find. They are just the hardest things to photograph. So I was like striking out on pretty much every day to find tigers when I went to this park. And this is one of the best parks supposedly to find tigers in India. So I was like, okay, what's happening? What am I doing wrong? And the answer is you're not doing anything wrong. They're just wild animals, and if they're hard to find, they're hard to find. So on one of the last days I was there, again, I think all the good stuff happened towards the end. But I found this tiger, and he had found some prey. He was stalking kind of these big bison out in the grasslands, and so he was kind of walking by, and I got a really cool photo of him. So he's actually looking at prey, and I was at a nice eye level as he's walking through the grass, and got him in an opening. So I was really happy to get this shot, particularly because I knew how hard I had been working and the fact I wasn't getting anything. So to actually have something, and I don't know about you guys, but if I go on a trip and I'm not photographing things, my morale just starts to plummet and just go downhill.
Oh yes, I've said that before. I've said that before on the podcast. Yes.
So Philip, I flew all the way to India, went on a Ranthambore tiger safari for 4 days straight and never saw a tiger.
No.
Oh no.
I don't have a single picture other than a paw imprint in mud.
No.
Oh my goodness. That's horrible.
Yes, Philip, I concur. It's very frustrating.
The other thing about India is, like, you imagine the worst bear jam you've ever had in the Tetons. And it's like that in India for tigers, because everybody is going to these parks, and there's other things to photograph, but everybody's going there with the sole intention of finding a tiger. And so when somebody finds one, every vehicle is there trying to jockey for position so people can see it. A lot of times people just want to see it and take a photo with their iPhone, which is fine, it's cool. But it's like, okay, you're in the prime photo spot that I want to be in right now. So it's a really challenging photographic environment. And I think that made me appreciate all the other cool photos I see other photographers get of tigers. Because I used to think, like, oh, it's just so easy. You'll just, walk down the road, be there, and you get all these amazing shots. And that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
Every tiger photo you see has hours and hours of searching and looking and positioning and listening just to try and find one. So if you see a tiger photo, just know how much work went into getting it. It's not.
Well, I love the light on the eyes and the whiskers and the
gaze. He's like
so beautiful.
Yeah,
it's really pretty. Oh
yeah.
I think you also have a pangolin. Is that
right?
Come on, Philip. We're going to showcase all these beautiful
animals.
Do I even know what a pangolin? I don't. Oh, that's okay. That's pangolin. Look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like people are talking about them more and more in the last couple of years.
They're pretty cool looking. Like they got to be like prehistoric, like alligators and turtles.
Yeah. So they are. I call this my 1 in a million shot, because I think I will spend the rest of my life doing wildlife photography and never see one again. For people who shoot in Africa, every person you ask, you say, like, oh, what's your bucket list animal? What's your dream animal? And a lot of people just say, oh, it's a pangolin. Like, I want to see a pangolin. But they say it as a joke because they know, like, you're never going to see one.
Yeah.
And I actually saw one, like, in the wild. And I think this is honestly, and it doesn't look like much, this is the best photo I've ever taken, just because of how hard it is to find this. They are the most endangered trafficked animal in the world.
Yes.
People are talking about them more and more because they are being poached on an incredible scale. Their scales are very popular in traditional medicine in East Asia. So a lot of times people are taking them and selling them or selling their scales. So it's very challenging to find one in the wild, and they're nocturnal. So you definitely don't find them during the day. You find them at night, because they'll go out at night. And they're kind of like, anteaters, and they'll look for termite mounds, and, they have a very long tongue. And so it's very rare to find one. So we were actually, this is also in the Delta when I went to go see the wild dogs as well. We're sitting at these lions, and there's these lions under a bush. And I have a couple other photos of this scene where I'm looking at these lions, and they're all just sleeping under the bush. So we're sitting there waiting for the lions to wake up and get active and take photos of lions. And as we're sitting there, we kind of see this little shape moving right next to the lions. We're like, what is that? We're like, oh my God, that's a pangolin.
Way.
Like, what? Like, I had no idea. And so all the other vehicles are there. They're photographing the lions. I'm shooting the pangolin.
Absolutely.
Like, you guys have no idea, like, what this is, how incredible this is. It's impossible to find them. They are so small. They're tiny. They're nocturnal. They're so endangered. Finding one is like finding a needle inside of a haystack inside of another haystack.
Give us a size reference, Philip. You say they're small, so compare it to something that we might know so that we can understand how small.
Maybe smaller than a basketball.
Oh, they're that small.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
and
Okay.
then they
They're
kind of,
tiny. Yeah. So
yeah,
this was, I was
Okay.
shooting my 200 to 600. So this is full 600 and heavily
Okay.
cropped in already.
okay.
And so what they do is, when they feel threatened, they kind of curl up into a ball, and they're totally impenetrable. So the lion saw it, walking by, and they're like, "What is that?" So then it curls up into a ball because it notices the lions looking at it, and the lions are pawing at it and playing with it and trying to get at it. And yeah, eventually the lions gave up because they're virtually impervious once they're curled up in a ball like that. And so then it started walking away, and then it just kind of looked at me. He's like, "Help me, save me, please." And there's
What an incredible experience to watch that all play out.
Yeah, no, it was really cool, and they're so cute when they like put their hands together. They look so polite.
That is so cute.
Like
I
a
know,
little
very
waiter or
poised.
something.
Yeah.
It is
so,
looking at you like that.
yeah, they're really cool animals. And like I said, I will probably go my whole life and never see another one just because it's so hard to find one. But I think this is probably just from difficulty alone. I think this is the best photo I've ever taken. So
yeah. Well, we were just talking about India, and then even when we talk about the Mara, it's the more I hear about it, it's just the crowding and like people trying to find solutions to not crowd or maybe go to private reserves or do you have tips like how we coexist, how we plan our trips so we don't put pressure on the environment and on the wild animals? Have you solutions?
It's hard. And it's such a balancing act, and the Mara is kind of a victim of its own success. It's been, so many people have seen documentaries and other photographers have gone there and come away with incredible shots. And now everybody else wants a piece of the pie, right? But there's not enough slices to go around for everybody, right? So how do you manage that? Yeah. And it's hard too, because I think a lot of reserves kind of depend on tourism.
Right.
In order to generate revenue to go back into paying rangers, paying community members to protect the reserve. So of course, a lot of people want to, develop lodges and hotels and make it popular and say, hey, come visit here. Everybody wants to be able to benefit economically from the park in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And so as a result, you get lots of crowds because it's so popular, because it's such a good place to shoot. And there's a lot of different solutions that I think people have kind of thrown out there. Some people have said, okay, maybe we need to have better enforcement of rangers so people don't off-road as much, because even if you're supposed to stay on the roads, if there's a cheetah laying in the grass over there and nobody's really looking around, some guys are going to say, all right, well, I want to take my guest over there because if they see a cheetah, they'll give me a really good tip, right? So it's hard. There's a lot of things that maybe guides can do better, but also photographers or other guests that are going to visit these places, just try and be ethical as much as possible. Even if you want the photo, recognize that sometimes there are moments when you're probably going to be harassing the animal. If you get, too close, you try to block their path. And it can be challenging to try and restrain yourself sometimes. But there's a moment earlier where I mentioned that there was a cheetah that I saw in the Mara with young cubs. And cheetahs in the Mara are really struggling because of over tourism. A lot of cheetahs don't have cubs in the reserve anymore because so many people will come up to them and see the cubs. And a lot of other predators, when they see swarms of vehicles, they've learned that means something's over there. So they want to go check it out. So a lot of times all these tourists crowding around cheetahs and cheetah cubs are getting the cubs killed because then lions and hyenas are coming and killing them. So when I saw this cheetah with the cubs, I told my guide, I said, hey, go call the park warden to go close off this area because I don't want these cheetah cubs to be, under any threat from anything, because people are going to find the den and then, try and get their shots and then end up getting them all killed. And so I think it's just important to know when the photo isn't really worth it. And I think that, a lot of people have said like, okay, I'll go to, private reserves outside of the Mara that are on the border that, because they're so expensive, that means there's not as much people, which is fine. But I think it's not really addressing the core issue, is that people need to be behaving better, with the animals that they're seeing. And, it's an education thing. People need to learn that like, hey, these species are under a lot of threat. Give them space. They can see their surroundings. I know you want the photo and you want to go off road to get, in the right spot, but you really shouldn't be doing that. And it's hard to be ethical. It's really hard because I think everybody goes there and really wants to make their once in a lifetime trip count. Yeah. And they want their photos to be able to say like, hey, I got the shot,
Yeah.
And I feel that, I constantly feel that pressure on myself as well. And it's hard sometimes to listen to the voice in the back of your head saying like, hey, it's not worth it. Just back off. Like you might have this photo, but it's almost going to be tainted. You're going to know the backstory that you went too far. You harassed the animal for this shot. And yeah, you might get a bunch of likes on social media, but you leave and that animal has to deal with the consequences of over tourism. So it's not worth it. So I'd say, like, if you go to the Mara, you want to go and make sure that you have a good guide, make sure everybody's on the same page about, kind of the rules that there are to follow. And also, police yourself, because a lot of these guides want, to maybe cross the line a little bit because they know that their guests want to see or photograph certain things, but you just have to let them know, say, hey, like, I'm not one of those people. If we have to sit and give the animal some space, then we sit and we give them some space. It's just
that's really good advice. That's really good advice for people before they go.
Yeah,
like you said, it's tempting.
Yeah, I mean, I say that in Africa, but that can go for anywhere. Do you really need to walk? Do you need to walk straight up to that owl nest that's in your backyard and start photographing right above them? Not really. If you're in Yellowstone, do you need to start running down the street when Grizzly 610 is crossing the road? Probably not.
Right.
So just police our own behavior. I've really started to feel like the shots that I take should come from a place that I know that I did everything right and I respected the animals. Because if I know I didn't, I feel kind of icky about the photo that I have.
Yep. So true. It's so true. That's really good advice. And like you said, it's here too. Everywhere. Yeah, I mean, locally here in Indiana with owls and stuff, it's here too. So I think during the pandemic, people seem to lose their minds a little bit. Things have gotten a little bit better, but it's tempting. And I think when you say something, sometimes that influences others to stop too. Like if you just say, no, I'm not going to, or if you say out loud to your guide, no, I'm not one of those people, then maybe that you, like you said, get on the same page with everybody on your trip. And that's really good advice.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because I think since the pandemic, photography and specifically wildlife photography has really taken off and become more accessible to lots of different people. And even places as far off as Africa have become way more accessible to people. So, a lot of people, they want their photo. They want, the moment that they've seen other people have, and they want to be able to capture that too. But yeah, it's the best thing you can do is police yourself. And just, if you have that attitude and you can convey that message to other people, I think that's the best thing you can do in order to prevent these super popular places from just kind of going downhill.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you can choose to not go during the busiest time so that you don't put pressure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, so everybody likes to go to the Mara in kind of that July, August, September timeframe. That's considered high season. And the reason why is because that's when, the migration of all the wildebeest come to the reserve. And they cross the river and they get eaten by the crocodiles, and everybody's seen it in all these nature documentaries and they want to see it too, right?
Yeah.
But there have been so many times when, you get to a river crossing, you see these wildebeest about to, cross the river. And I'm not exaggerating, there's 100 vehicles just all on the other side of the river, just waiting for that moment to cross. And once they go down the hill and they start to cross, everybody just races there because they want to be in the prime position to see everything.
Oh gosh.
And in doing that, like, you're probably getting a lot of wildebeest killed by doing it, because now you're blocking off exit routes from them. They get confused. They thought they wanted to go left and now they have to go right. So
I would not want to be a part of that.
Yeah. And I admit, I think recently there's kind of been some new, government, policies to kind of restrict things like that, which is good. And, that's important. But there's, rangers can't be everywhere. They can't police everybody. So
for the advantage of that.
Yeah. So for the most part, I try not to go to the Mara in high season, but it's kind of like going to Yellowstone, not in high season. Every season is still kind of there's still going to be people somewhere. So, but like, that photo I took of Leluka with that warthog, for the most part, everybody goes and they see the leopard and they got their shots for, 15, 20 minutes, and then they get bored and then they want to go off somewhere else. And, then at a moment like that, then there's 3 or 4 vehicles, and then, people can behave a little bit better because there's not so much chaos. So if you're willing to be patient and you understand the game, and, don't get too frustrated when there's, a bunch of vehicles. I know it's hard and annoying and you feel like it's, detrimental to the wildlife that you're trying to shoot. But, a lot of people, they don't have the patience that photographers have. Give them their moment and then they'll leave, and then the animal will kind of chill out a little bit, and then you can get your shots. So
that's a good tip too. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. I think I picture it like just photographers and quiet, and then I realize that's not the way it is.
It's not.
I think, yeah,
How
there are very
learning
few
more and
places
more.
in the world like that where you just get a sighting to yourself and you just get to enjoy it all, and very remote places. But yeah, for the most part, we're sharing our sightings. And there's nothing wrong with that. I
Yeah.
want the photo, the people in the car next to me want the photo, or the person standing next to you. We all want the shot. We just have to make sure we're behaved about how we get it.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
you just mentioned Yellowstone, or I mean, we could even, for all that matter, talk about Tetons. But how would you compare shooting in America in Yellowstone and Tetons in contrast to shooting in Africa? Like the differences.
Yeah, it's the first word that comes to mind is hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I was spoiled because I went to Africa and went on safari first in my wildlife career. And then I went to Yellowstone afterwards, and I had never been to Yellowstone. I didn't really know much about the road network. And I think it's the road network that just is the hardest part, because in Africa there's so many different side roads, and you can go here, you can go there, there's different
Yeah.
routes to
Yeah.
get to whatever sighting. In Yellowstone, you're stuck on the figure eight. If there's not something by the roadside or a pullout, you're kind of out of luck. And obviously people, they can go out in the backcountry and hope you see a sighting or something, and that's great if you want to do it. I'm personally not somebody who wants to go hiking in grizzly country. That's just me. Obviously, I know some people do and come away with really good shots, but so I stick to the roads, and a lot of times it's just you work those roads back and forth every
Yep.
day. You hope something happens. So there's things to see. There's always bison that are nearby. Sometimes you'll find elk and moose and stuff. I think Yellowstone requires a lot of patience. I think I get really spoiled when I go on safari and I'm shooting 2,000-3,000 photos a day. There are times in Yellowstone where I don't press my shutter button at all on my camera.
Right.
My memory card is like blank for a day. Like I just don't
Right.
take any photos. That doesn't mean it's like a bad time or anything. It's obviously enjoyable, but there have been some frustrating times for me in Yellowstone where I'm just like, come on, man, like something happened. Like work with me here.
I get it.
Right.
Totally get it. I mean, you were like that this winter. I remember you're like third day still waiting.
Nothing. Just like the confirmation I'm alive, so people know I'm alive, but there's been nothing. So yeah, like I've gone to Yellowstone spring, summer, fall, winter at this point. I think I've kind of seen it all, and it's just a place that it tests your patience, and if you're willing to wait it out, cool things will happen. You just got to work with it. You got to let things come to you. And there's
Cool
Oh
things
well,
happen.
that can come to me. That looks.
This is a picture of a wolf that you saw this winter, right?
It's okay.
Yeah.
People listening.
So I've said wild dogs are my muse for Africa. For the Americas, it's very much wolves. I come to Yellowstone pretty much exclusively for wolves. That's what I want to photograph. I have struck out so many times and really struggled until this winter, and I've never gone to Yellowstone in winter before, so I just went this past January. There's a couple pullouts kind of in Lamar Valley that I know have internet service. And so after driving around and striking out for a little bit, I was like, okay, I'll go to the pullout, maybe have a bite to eat or something, and just like chill for a little bit, check on my phone and scroll or whatever. And so I'm going to this pullout, and as I'm driving there, I see this black shape on top of a rock. I'm just like, I said some not good words.
I mean,
because I know how hard it is to find wolves. 99.9% of the times, if you see wolves in Yellowstone, they are little black dots that you have to look at through a spotting scope a mile away. And it's great to see them, but it is not good for photography. And so I just completely unexpected, just driving down the road, it just came down and walked right down the road, right next to my car, and just looked right at me. I couldn't have scripted this. There's nothing I could have done. It was just pure random luck. But I've gone to Yellowstone and tried to get shots like this so many times and forced it, and it just wasn't happening, and it just like sunk my morale. And so this trip, I just said, hey, whatever happens, happens. Let the photos come to you. And this wolf literally it came to me.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that is a really good point. Like when you said forced it and forced it and forced it.
Forced it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is so true. When you are feeling the pressure and you're trying to force things to happen, I think it's probably the number one thing that does affect morale. It's like, that's what pushes me down in the dumps, is just the pressure I put on myself. And I think for all of us, we're traveling there. So we're spending money and time. We don't live there. And so thinking of that too, in the back of your mind, the money, the time, you know?
Yeah, the money, the time, and not even just like I mean, you're waking up at, 5 in the morning and you're driving around all day long. And I mean, it makes it sound like you're not doing much because you're sitting all day, but driving is mentally taxing too. You're scanning around everywhere, you're looking for things. And yeah, when I went to Yellowstone in October of 23, I was, chasing wolves every day too. And there was one moment when a wolf had crossed the road and I just wasn't in the position to get the photo. I was too far away. I couldn't get to my car in time to drive and get to the point where I could photograph it. And when it crossed, I won't, deny it. I just cried. I just was like, dude, I have been pouring in weeks of blood, sweat, and tears to try and get something. And that was my moment and I missed it. Yeah. And then it's just like, okay, but this is why I'm, being so down in the dumps, because I'm putting all this pressure on myself. Just remove the pressure and things will happen. So many people want to go to these places to get the photos. And if you just go into the mindset that you will see whatever you see and whatever happens, good things will happen. And that's how I got, this shot that I've been chasing literally for years. I've gone to Yellowstone so many times to talk to so many people. Every time I tell them I want wolves, I want wolves, I want wolves, they're like, okay, good luck, good luck, good luck.
Right.
It's like, but I mean,
it's the pangolin of Yellowstone.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because wolves are tricky because people see them every day. Every day people are going out with the wolf watchers and everybody's seeing them through the scopes. And it's hard because I can see them. I'm like, they're there, I can see them. I know they're there. If only they were here by the road to photograph them. And so a lot of times you go and you're driving around and you see the wolf watchers. You're just like, okay, the wolves are over there. That means there's none around here. So I'm going to strike out again today. But I think on this morning, people were seeing wolves all around the, Lamar and in different places, kind of on the blacktail. So there were wolves in different places. And that usually is a recipe of, okay, if they're in different places, somebody needs to cross somewhere. So I think in the back of my mind, I said, okay, somebody is going to be somewhere. So I was kind of driving around, but not seriously expecting this to happen.
Right.
So you can plan, and I think, what is it? Luck is preparation meets opportunity. I think it's the same. So yeah, I was prepared for a moment like this, and the opportunity happened, and that's just the luck. So I could go to Yellowstone again, next winter and try to get the shot again. Probably wouldn't happen. So
right.
You can't let the pressure get to you. Like as soon as you can just take the monkey off your back and just enjoy and photograph whatever you photograph, I think that's when you have the most success.
Yeah, I think so too. And that preparation too, like we've talked about that before, is just that preparation, because the adrenaline is going to be kicking in. So the muscle memory and the preparation that you've built is so important, when these moments happen.
Yeah, you got to be ready. I mean, I'm driving and I have my 400 2.8, in my passenger seat next to me. And as soon as I see it, I got to go. I got to make sure my settings are ready, that they're not wrong from the last picture I just took.
That's right.
You got to make sure that, and I'm, because the wolf was so close to me at that time, I didn't get out of my car. So I'm shooting out of my driver's side window. So, okay, I'm holding a giant 400 2.8 lens on my window. Yep. How's my posture? My balance okay? Am I going to be able to hold this okay? And I was just like, okay, I hope I can get something usable out of this.
You did. It's great.
Yeah, you did. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I was happy to come away with something. Because
how much were you shaking?
Man, yeah, I was just like, my hands could barely move, and even as I'm holding my lens, I was like, oh my God, it's a wolf. Especially, I know how hard so many of these photos are. If I see like a lion or an elephant, I'm just like, okay, like I know I can kind of see that everywhere, or like a bison, like I can see that every day. But these big animals that I know are so hard to see, you feel the adrenaline and the pressure. You're just like, I gotta be ready. I gotta make this moment count, because you're not gonna get another moment like this.
It's true. It's true. And sometimes even that preparation, you're still going to make mistakes, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's okay, but it is going to happen.
It is happening. Well, I think social media makes wolves look like wolves are in Yellowstone all the time, that everybody's getting them. And then when I went this winter, I realized that is not the case. We did see them on our last day, but but they did come behind dots. Yeah, well, they came behind a big herd of bison that was like a mile and a half long, running towards us. And so we did see them a little bit bigger than dots, and then they came close to the snow coach, and they were very close, but I was on the wrong side of the snow coach, but still got to see it out my window. And you're just not prepared. I've never seen one in the wild before. So, you've got to be prepared, because that adrenaline is going to be kicking in. And
Yeah.
you just don't know what's going to happen, like you said, but it's not a guarantee. And I think that I realized, like, social media makes it look so easy, and it's just not.
It's
Yeah,
not.
I mean, I don't want to say I'm spoiled, but yeah, we're spoiled to see so many other photographers who shoot in these places. A lot of people are there full time, and
Right. That's what you
they're
have to.
being able, yeah, they're
Right.
being able to see these things on a regular basis, and they come
Right.
away with incredible wolf shots. Or, it was last year when I think it was the Wapadees took down a bison in the Firehole River, and
Right.
everybody came away with these incredible wolf shots. And just like, man, but okay, but the people who are there, most of the
Right.
part, are they're professionals leading tours, or they're
Right.
guests
That's
that
right.
had to get, really lucky to just be there at the right time, the right place.
Right.
Most people aren't fortunate, or just the cards aren't in, the right place at the right time. So,
Right.
it's hard, but yeah, I think, I looked at the timestamps of this photo. I think this whole sighting lasted less than a minute. Maybe it's like 45 seconds.
Wow.
It, came by, took the photo, went up a hill, and it was gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
And so many people think that, like, I'll go to Yellowstone in winter, I'll go on a snow coach tour, and the wolves will just be in the road, and I'll just take all the photos of them
Nope.
because that's what everybody else is taking. And yeah, it does not work like that.
No,
So-
it does not work like that. But sometimes it does, and
Yeah.
hard work pays off, and there's always beauty to be found if you're not seeing wolves. I mean, we saw bison, and just like anything, even the landscapes and things like that. I mean, it's just looking for the beauty, looking for the joy, and you can find things. You can really find things. I can hear that with you, Phillip. I mean, I feel like even in the last 4 years, it sounds like you have already evolved. You're building your artist statement. You're like thinking of your mission and your purpose. So do you have a why that keeps you going? Like, what is your why?
Yeah, I think it's hard because I think the why for a lot of photographers is just, I want to take good photos and, be able to have them and create things and say, I made this, or I took this photo. For me, I think it really is kind of those endangered species that really drive me, and being able to photograph and document them and share their stories.
Yeah.
For a lot of people who maybe don't know, wolves, even though they're back in Yellowstone, they're constantly under threat for various reasons.
Very much.
So being able to photograph a wolf and showcase that, in its natural wild environment is really important to me, to be able to show that. Photographing a wild dog or a cheetah, being able to say, in the caption of a photo that I post on social media, like, hey, this is a super endangered animal, and here's why. And maybe somebody else will see that and say, oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
And maybe that person decides that next time they go and see one, they want to act differently around it. Or maybe they say, hey, I want to get invested in, some sort of conservation efforts to help protect these animals. What can I do?
Right.
How can I help in some way? So I think for me, it's these keystone endangered species that are really driving me. And I think a lot of times, it is me putting pressure on myself, because I really want to see these animals, and I know how hard it can be to find them. So I'm always trying to chase, the most, hard to find animals at this point, just so I can kind of document their plight. And I think for me, being able to share that and share those experiences with other people is really what drives me.
Yeah.
Taking good photos. And I used to play the social media game where I cared about the followers and the likes on the posts. And eventually it's just like, that's not why I should be doing this. If that's all that's motivating you, then you're not going to go very far. You have to be able to find some sort of reason to go out there and go to places and photograph things besides just, your own altruistic reasons.
Right.
You have to have bigger goals, in your mind. And so for me, I think it's just showcase these animals, showcase the places that they are, and, kind of the dangers that they face, because I think all around the world, all animals are, being threatened in some capacity. There's not enough places for both humans and wildlife to coexist. So how can we make it work, And I think being able to tell those stories is a really important aspect of wildlife photography that I think really drives me.
Yeah. I think that's true. And I think if you're looking for social media to give you that purpose, whatever, it's going to fail you every time.
Yeah,
it's just not the right. I think David Dushman said it's not the right measure. It's not the right measure of your worth or your purpose. Yeah. So I think that's a higher purpose. That's a great tip, Phillip, to have a higher purpose in this. And like, I think that's a morale killer too, is the social media game, and to get out of it and just to do it for the art and to do it for the animal, to do it for what you love. It's a game changer. I have to remind myself every day about that. Not every day, but you just have to keep it in mind, because we are so driven by these social media tools that it's like it is good to keep it in the front of your mind. Like, why am I doing this? I had to have that whole conversation with myself and with my husband this week. Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's hard. Social media, like, especially for wildlife photographers, like there's very few places to really get our work out there. I mean,
Right.
a lot of
So
photographers
true.
a lot of people will have websites and stuff, but ask yourself, how often are you really going to a wildlife photographer's website or a
Right.
YouTube channel or stuff like that? It really is mostly social media that we're posting stuff. And there've been
Exactly.
so many times I have a photo, I was like, oh, I love this photo, but I know it's gonna bomb on social media and
Right.
nobody's gonna see it.
Yes.
So true.
It's hard, but and there have been times when I'm literally out in the field and I'm taking photos of things. I'm just like, wait, I'm taking this picture for Instagram because I know that this crop in this position in this portrait shot is going to get so many likes. It's like, no, I can't be doing that. Like, I need to be taking the photos that I want to take in the way I want to take
That's
them.
right. That's right.
Yes.
You know, because everybody, especially for African wildlife, everybody wants to see close-up portraits of a lion or a leopard, or they want to see, you know, an elephant, you know, with their tusks right in front. And everybody has these photos that get tons and tons of likes, but it's not necessarily the photos that you want to be taking for yourself. And
Right.
so the social media game, you just have to remove yourself from it as much as possible. And you take the photos that you want to take and you post the photos that you want to post. And if people like them and, you know, they're really engaged by them, cool.
Yeah.
And if not, I mean, what would you rather have? Would you rather have 100 people who kind of vaguely really like your photos, or would you rather have 10 people who are like invested in you as a photographer?
Yeah, that's
invested in your
true.
work?
That's a
Right.
good
So,
word. Yeah, that's
you
a
know,
really good word.
I'm
And you don't want
way
to give
more
up your own point of view for
Yeah.
because everybody else is getting that one shot. You know, then you're giving up your artistic point of view totally.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you have to ask, is that worth it? Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, like, it's, you know, the handful of people that I engage with, like people like you, Jen, like I engage with your content and like I like the work that you do, but it's not about the photo, it's about the person behind the photo.
Right,
And
right.
I'm
Yep.
much more interested in those handful of people that, you know, you're really engaged with, rather than just playing the numbers game of all the likes and follows you can get.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. That is not good for me to do it that way. It is not.
No, it's hard.
Yep.
Well, so with all that said, Philip, what advice would you give to someone that's just kind of starting to pick up a camera and jumping into wildlife? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I think a point I just kind of touched on was a piece of advice somebody gave me was that people don't follow photos, they follow photographers.
Yeah.
I think the important thing for you starting out is find out who you are as a photographer, not just in terms of what you want to shoot, but what do you want to create? You know, I just kind of knocked it, you know, earlier, but if you're the type of person that really just wants to shoot type portraits of animals and that's your thing, go ahead and do that. Like, knock yourself out. Like, if that's what you want to do, then you do that. If you want to shoot nothing but landscapes and have, you know, a tiny animal like a bison in the bottom right corner and you just want to show the animals in their environment, do that. So I think find out what work really speaks to you and then, you know, create that. Find out who you are as a photographer before you just start taking pictures and spraying and praying and whatever you see. You know, you see like, oh my gosh, it's a bison, take a photo. Oh my gosh, it's now, take a photo. It's like, okay, but what are you photographing? What do you want to create?
Right.
And I think for me at first, it was just making sure the technical aspects are right and can I get the photo tack sharp and everything. But I really didn't pay enough attention to the creative side of things. Like I said, I was never a very creative person growing up. So the creative side has always come challenging to me. The technical is a lot easier, but yeah, I think, you know, this is a creative medium. Find out what you want to create, who you are as a photographer.
Yeah. Give yourself
Well, and to
permission to do
always
that.
recognize too that that's going to evolve. Like
Right.
you might
Yeah.
start out as one type of photographer and then
Sorry, I just
Wait,
shook
you
my
have
whole
an
table.
earthquake
I'm okay over here. Sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
but you might start out as one type of photographer and then find out that, you know, you like a totally different medium.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to explore. Like, always explore, always evolve and try different things in your arsenal, because you
Yeah.
just never know what you might be able to come up with. There's some pretty creative artists out there that are doing some pretty cool stuff with photography. So
Yeah, and I think every photographer will end up in a rut at some point, a creative rut.
yeah,
You're
100%.
you're gonna hit a
Yep.
wall, and you're gonna say,
Yep.
my photos feel the same. I'm not doing anything different, and you just have to push yourself into uncomfortable situations. I remember I was in the Serengeti last year, and I had shot so many normal photos, and at one point we found a herd of wildebeest that were just kind of running by. They're all running by in a straight line, and so I said, hey, like I'm gonna try panning photography, which is something I never do, where you're taking a super low shutter speed and a super high aperture, and you're just trying to photograph these animals go by and create blur motion. And it's a creative shot that a lot of other photographers do, but I had never done it. And I think that was one of the most creatively stimulating parts of my trip there, was just trying something different. And yeah, most of the photos didn't really land, but it was cool, and a couple did, and I really liked it. So you're going to hit a wall at some point. Find out how you can mix things up a little bit. Look at other people's work to get inspired. Evaluate your own work and be a little self-critical and be like, hey, what is it about my own work that I'm not digging or that's kind of bothering me? And try and push past that. So a lot of photography it's not static. We're very dynamic people, so you just got to find out ways to make things a little bit different.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, we have a couple questions in the Q&A. If you have questions for Phillip, go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and I'll read them. Jenny Cannon asks, Phillip, what are some I cannot talk tonight. Phillip, what are some future projects or trips you have coming up?
Oh man, yeah, that's the story of my life. Is when one trip ends, another trip is just starting to be planned.
Say, you probably have it planned.
I think this sounds like a good problem, Phillip.
Yeah, no, it is. So yeah, I mentioned I'm heading to the San Juans in a couple of weeks to shoot whales. That should be fun. In May, I am heading to Sumatra. I'll be photographing orangutans in Sumatra, which is really cool. Yeah, so that should be really exciting, and hopefully I can kind of do a little side quest along the way and photograph some other cool animals there. And then I knowing me, I find a way to go back to Africa every year, whether I have it planned or not. So I will be going to Zambia and Zimbabwe later this fall, where I will be just chasing wild dogs for the whole trip.
Oh wow, that will be fun to follow along.
Yeah, so I mentioned that series that kind of inspired me into photography. It was called Dynasties, and it was filmed in a park in Zimbabwe called Mana Pools, which is one of the best places to find wild dogs. So I said, I'm going full circle to the place that inspired me, and I've never been able to make it out there yet. So I'm going to go there and try and find some wild dogs. And
you should be able to get some incredible elephant photography out at Mana Pools, because you can get on the ground with them. And
yeah, so I'm really excited about that. So that's 2025 in a nutshell. I hope hopefully no other trips pop up along the way, because my bank account won't love me. But
do you have to balance work as you're gone, or do you get to focus on photography?
No, I get to focus on photography. Okay, I think it would be too stressful. Well, I mean, time zones are insane,
right?
But it's also anytime you're doing wildlife photography, you're out from sunrise to sunset, and then you get back, and then it's like, okay, I just want to sleep.
I know. I think that I can do it, and I can't do it.
I need more vacation days like Phillip. I don't think I have as many as he does.
Creative planning and lots of holidays, traveling around holidays is to make it work.
Yeah. So.
She also asked, do you have a mentor, or have you had someone that's walked alongside you or that you admire?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anybody who's been like a strict mentor towards me. There's a couple other photographers I've worked and showed my work to, and they've kind of provided feedback. Yeah. There's a couple that really inspire me, I think. Mm-hmm. I went on a trip to the Pangolin Hotel in Chobe, and a lot of people who do wildlife photography are familiar with pangolin photo safaris. They do safaris in Botswana, and when I went, I kind of knew the usual faces that had appeared in all their YouTube videos. It's like, oh, I can't wait to meet them, be all starstruck. Yeah. And my guide for one of the days was somebody I'd never heard of before, and I was just like, "You're not in the videos. Who are you?" And it was another guy who had just joined. His name is William Steele. He's a very famous wildlife photographer. He's worked on documentaries like Planet Earth before, and so he had just joined Pangolin, and he just does the most creative, wild stuff. He'll shoot at f/22, 1/25th of a second, just the most random settings to take creative stuff. He does lots of high key stuff. Mm-hmm. He'll do really cool stuff with urban photography and birds around buildings and stuff. He's won lots of awards, and so When I met him and interacted with him, I was like, whoa, your work is really cool. And the things you're asking me to do is so out of my comfort zone. But I see what he does now, and I'm just like, man, like I just want to do that.
That's cool.
So,
And
yeah,
that's a way to challenge yourself later when you're thinking about those things.
Yeah. There's so many times I'm just like out of the field. I'm just like, oh man, like, what would he be doing in this situation? Like, what should I be doing? And obviously, there's lots of other photographers that inspired me. For the Mara at least. Jonathan and Angela Scott, they're two very famous wildlife photographers. They've been shooting in the Mara since the 70s. Wow. And just the history of everything that they've seen, you think about all the cats that they, follow all the time. They're called the big cat people. They've seen, the mothers.
Yes, I do see them on Instagram. Okay.
Yes. So they started shooting the Mara in like the 70s, and Jonathan wrote a book called The Big Cat Diaries, and basically was documenting everything he was seeing working as a photographer in the Mara. And Big Cat Diaries eventually turned into a television series that was on, Animal Planet in the late 90s and early 2000s. So growing up, like I watched a lot of Big Cat Diaries. It was really cool to see their work. And it's cool just because they've seen, the full lifespans of these animals. They've seen them as cubs, grow up into adults, grow on to have kids, and, then, eventually die. And they can trace all the subjects they've photographed basically back until the 70s from when they first started shooting. So the wealth of knowledge and, photos that they have of those places is always really inspiring to me, to, see what the Mara used to be like, what it is today, and read kind of the stories that they've been able to tell. So I really love their work too. And everything that they do is so cool.
Yeah. It'd be fun to soak things up from people that have been invested in so long. Yeah.
I remember reading that book. I was driving to the Mara and I was reading the diaries because I never read them before. I was just like, man, like this is such a cool book. And it's nothing special. There's no real narrative. It's just like, oh, today we followed, this lion pride, and they, took down a buffalo because they have cubs over here. And these, other males came into their territory. It's like, how do they navigate that? It's a drama. I think nature is it is the best drama. It's better than any TV show. It just captivates us because these animals are just living their lives, trying to fight and survive in whatever way that they can, and that it just captures us. And so I think that for me is just so cool.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that has come away from me, and just doing this for the last 8 years or whatever, is like the survival and the struggle. The day-to-day survival is just way more powerful than I ever realized. You're just doing your daily life. And even in my local park, like there's struggle to survive in these urban areas. And it's just a daily minute by minute thing. And then to witness it is such a privilege, to see these animals survive, and the beauty and the death and the struggle.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. So
yeah. I mean, we're fortunate, I can pick up the phone and I can order a pizza. And that's why I get my food. It's like, exactly. I don't have to hunt and like try
and even just these storms, like we've been having horrible storms here, and I'm thinking like just the storms alone, like it's just, I think about my little nature area and all the animals. Another question from Peter Ismert is, do you have any advice on balancing your 9 to 5 with your photography?
Yeah. It's hard, obviously, the work comes first. And that is always really important to remember. I think the thing that I'm always remembering is like, hey, I do this so that I can do that. Right. This is my passion. This is why I do purpose. And so that can also kind of drive you to, focus on that 9 to 5. And then, we don't have all the time in the world, but there are ways you can find to, make the time that you do have count, and, plan the trips around everything. And you might not be able to go to the Mara for 2 weeks, but can you go for a week? And, you'll probably still come away with great shots. Yeah, you might not go to Yellowstone for a month, but there's a lot you can photograph in a week or two. Yeah. So, you don't have to go on the crazy long trips all around the world. You can find ways to make your little trips count any way that you can. Yeah. And I think I've stretched myself to like, hey, how can I make my time work with all the different places I want to go? And you create that bucket list, create, where you want to go next, start planning for things and start budgeting and figure out how much things are going to cost. And, if that's what you got to do to make it work, then that's what you got to do.
Yeah,
that's right. There's a lot of things I don't do because I want to do photography. So
that's true.
There are things that I just don't do.
Drive the old cars.
That's right. Yep. There's no remodels happening. There's no things like that, because I'd rather be able to afford a little trip or buy camera gear. And I think it's just what your purpose is. And like you said,
or like, do you need the latest and greatest camera body and lens, or could you use that money instead to go for a trip?
Right.
I met a guy once while I was photographing eagles here in Seattle, and he was shooting an A1 and a 600 f4, and he was just like, and he was talking to me. He said, "Oh man, I wish I could go to Africa." I was like, "But you can clearly. You don't need a 600 f4. Like you could shoot a 100 400 and
Right.
spend that money on a safari instead." So
It's true. It's so true.
find
I've
ways
heard
to
that
make it
advice
work.
before too. And we had some questions in the chat, in the chat too. What's the best month for orcas in the San Juans and the cubs in Kenya?
Orcas is pretty much, kind of like spring, summer is actually really good, which is great, weather-wise, because it gets cold out on the water. So usually around the summer is the best time for orcas. Seattle has a resident group of orcas that lives around here most of the time, but they're not doing so well. And so there's a lot of restrictions around getting too close to them. So photographing them can be harder. So most of the orca photos you see are of what's called transient killer whales. And so they come down from Alaska and go, into the San Juans, and they'll go down to Mexico in California. And so those you usually see around here in the summer. So summertime is always a really good time to see them out here.
And then cubs in Kenya?
Cubs in Kenya. Everybody says that because they think cubs are like grizzly cubs where, they come out in May. Cats don't really have a season for cubs. They're kind of just always mating and giving birth all the time. So there's no real season. I would say it's hard too, because most cubs don't survive, which is challenging. So you might see on social media that like, hey, a cheetah gave birth to cubs, but if you try and like book a trip out there 6 months from now, there's no guarantee those cubs will come. When I booked my trip to the Mara in November, I remember a cheetah had just given birth to 2 cubs. I said, oh, like I want to go and see those 2 cubs. And by the time my trip had ended, she had lost both of them. So it happens. It's hard. There's no real best time. You just kind of go and you hope you get lucky. Lions, there'll be tons of lion cubs, but leopard and cheetah cubs, especially in places like the Mara, it's a gamble. Just whatever happens.
Yeah. Oh, those gorgeous cheetah cubs.
It's hard. It's hard.
Oh. And then someone asked, Lisa Ann asked, how do you approach the editing process for your wildlife photography? We really haven't talked about that yet.
Editing is the bane of my existence. It's so hard because I'm not a naturally creative person. So I'll take a photo. I'm just like, all right, what do I do with this now that I see it in front of me? And it's something that I've really kind of struggled with. So masking has been like a super big thing for me, especially with like Lightroom editing. Being able to, isolate my subject. Okay, what do I want to do to the subject? What do I want to do to the background? Can I play with different maskings to highlight, maybe some shadows in one area, bring out some attention and detail to another area. So I think I definitely try and break things down piece by piece and attack it that way, as opposed to just getting overwhelmed and just throwing sliders around. Especially
that's a good tip.
Especially when it comes to like finding my creative style. I think like sometimes I'm in a mood to create like a black and white shot or something. Sometimes I want just something a little bit more high key, more low key. So it just kind of depends on the mood I'm in. I'm never somebody who feels like my photos are a finished product, which is kind of hard when you sell prints and you do photography. There's a comparison I always use is, the Star Wars movies by George Lucas. Everybody knows Star Wars. He had historically would always go back and fix his movies and add things and distract things, and fans would hate it. You're like, oh, you're ruining the movie that I love. And it's like, yeah, but as an artist, like your work is, and I never really understood.
It's never done.
Your work is never done. There's no such thing as a finished product, And so I'm always going back and looking at old photos and tweaking things. And so, it depends on my mood.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Well, if you have questions, you can still put that in the Q&A. Let's go to the speed round.
Speed round. Let's do it.
You ready? Let's do it. I need buzzers or something. So is there something in your camera bag that you can't do without?
Yeah, I would say the big thing for me is my little rocket blower, my little air blower. Especially shooting Africa, dust is everywhere all the time. And so many times I've taken photos and then I look back when I'm editing them, I'm like, oh my gosh, there are dust specks all over my camera sensor. And so you just really got to be on top of checking your sensors regularly, cleaning them. So, a little rocket blower is really good for getting all that dust out. And then, little swabs as well to clean out the sensors. But if I go somewhere and don't have that, I'm struggling.
I will give you a little tip. Bring a shower cap with you and put it over the front of your lens when you're in Africa. I bought a shower cap because it's got, the elastic on it, and it's super quick. You can throw it on and rip it off really fast, and it completely
I have never heard that.
That's a good tip, and free in your hotel room.
Yes.
That's another. Okay. I will keep that one in mind.
That's a good tip. I hope
Yeah.
everybody heard that. Shower cap in Africa, in the Mara.
Yes.
Love
Yeah,
that.
he's right. Philip's right. Dust is everywhere, man.
That's
It
what
is
I've heard too.
everywhere.
I've also heard people that take like large, like a bag and then put the camera in the bag to change it, like a cloth bag. And then
Yeah, I always had a
that's how I
towel,
changed.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't change lenses. I usually have one
Right.
body, one
No.
lens, and I don't
Yep.
don't even try and play that game. So
Yep.
yeah, it's too much dust, too much to
Yeah,
think
that's
about.
probably what I should do too. I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I just should leave
Yeah.
it. I'm too clumsy.
What? All right. So what's one thing in your camera bag that you have that you never use? Because we all have it.
I'm not going to be original, but I'm going to say a teleconverter. I have a 1.4 teleconverter. It's okay. It's funny because I had a 200 to 600 for the longest time. That was my go-to lens.
Yep.
And then when I decided to buy my 400 2.8, I
Yep.
said, okay, I'm now going to no longer be able to shoot in that range from 400 to 600. You know, I'm going to be stuck at 400. It's a prime. And so I said, okay, I'll get a teleconverter, and then that can cover my base to at least 560, and that should be good, almost as if I have my 200 to 600. But every time I've used it, I've been forcing myself to use it because I was in a situation where my subject was too far anyways.
Yeah.
So thinking that I could put a teleconverter on and it would solve my problem really wasn't the case. It just meant I was too far, and no amount of additional reach.
True.
No amount of additional reach is going to solve that core problem.
No wishing is going to fix it.
I know,
Yeah.
but man, those owls, they don't like to come close always. You gotta
Yeah, no, that's true. I remember when I was in Yellowstone in January, I was fortunate and I found mountain lions, which was really cool. And I saw them so far away, and I was like, okay, let me throw on my 1.4 on my lens. And I was like, if I have to throw this on, they're too far in the first place. Like, there's nothing this is going to do to help. So yeah, my 1.4 does not get much use, sadly.
Yeah. Sometimes I put it on and just leave it on, and then I'm over lensed, but then I forget that I've left it on. But
I mean, that's what I love about Nikon, is having their 400
Yes.
with the built-in teleconverter. I'm just
Yes.
like, man, like that is so tempting just for that reason alone.
I know, that is the one thing I am jealous of with that, with Nikon. Absolutely. So what is your favorite snack while driving around or editing?
Ooh, that is tricky. I'll admit I'm not a big coffee guy, so I don't have a lot of caffeine. So every now and then I'll bring a Coke with me, like a regular Coke, just to try and get me, usually not every day, but on those afternoons where I'm just really slumping.
Yeah.
But I've gotten in trouble sometimes where I think, oh, I'm hydrating because I'm having a soda, right? And
So
I'm
true.
not, and I get very dehydrated. And there was one time I was in the Mara and I actually got heat stroke because I was not drinking enough water. I thought like, oh, that Coke in the afternoon would, will do it enough for me, and it did not. So yeah, definitely drink water. Water is what you should be drinking. Every now and then when I have a quiet day, I'll have a Coke, but ever since then, it's like, okay, I will balance the Coke with water. So.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, I forget to drink water, and it's also like, like all of us, we're like, if I'm going to the Tetons, it's different elevation, or Colorado, and then just I know I'm not getting enough water, but it's so important.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, I think it was William Steele. Is that right? The last name is Steele.
Yeah,
you mentioned him as being maybe a mentor or somebody that you looked up to, but what are some other maybe favorite photographers or books or something that you might be able to recommend to people to start to take a look at or follow on Instagram?
Yeah, there's another photographer who shoots in the Mara. His name is Felix Rome. And he's the resident photographer for one of the oldest camps in the Mara. It's called Governor's Camp. I think it's the first camp that was ever put up in the Mara. So he's the resident photographer there, and he just does really cool work with like color in the sky. And the cool thing about the Mara is a lot of times you get those dramatic sunrises and sunsets. And especially when you hit that happy point in the season when you get rain clouds, mixed with that dramatic light, you just get all these pinks and purples in the sky. It's really cool. So, the photos he posts are like, they look like art, like pastel paintings, and they're really cool. And he made a video once. He said, like, I don't even bother shooting past 9:30 in the morning, because at that point, like, the light isn't what I want to create, and I don't have the colors of the sky or the way I want it. And I'm just like, okay, I wouldn't go that extreme, but I see, I can see why, because he creates just really cool stuff. Very unique.
On YouTube too, right?
Yeah, he's on YouTube. He doesn't post as much as maybe he used to, but yeah, he does a lot of stuff in the Mara and then in British Columbia too.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, he just has a really cool experience. But I would make an argument that he's probably one of the best photographers shooting in the Mara right now. just for the work that he does. Just really cool stuff.
And then what's a moment that most filled your soul or filled you emotionally out there?
It's probably when I found the wild dogs for the first time. I remember thinking like how many years I had spent trying to, find them. And I'd gone to other places where, oh, the dogs were last seen here a week ago, or, we have seen them in the past, but we can't see them today. So you drive around and you look for them and you miss out because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And just, I remember seeing them, and because I was the only vehicle there, just being able to spend time with them. And I think when I found them the very first time when I took that first photo, we ended up going back for lunch, and I was just terrified. I was just like, okay, but what if they move? What if we can't find them again? Because they move like crazy. They will just, once they're gone, they're gone. They could be in like a whole other country, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like
that's what I read about them.
Wow.
They can really cover distance.
So I was so scared that I wasn't going to be able to find them again. So I said, okay, we'll have lunch, eat for like 30 minutes. And then I just want to go back out there and I just want to sit with them because I just don't want to lose them.
Yeah.
And I sat with them and they're just, sleeping under a bush or whatever. And I'm just looking at them and I'm enjoying them. I'm just like, man, like this is so rewarding. I've worked so hard for this moment. I have them in front of me. They're just such cool animals. And I'm the only one here. And it was really special. And I really feel like, when I saw that, when I had that moment, I was like, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing for like moments like this.
Yeah. It's one of those magical moments, man.
Yeah.
No. Why we keep going, because it feeds something. It's more than just feeding creativity. It's like you said, you just get that bug and you can't.
Yeah. Well, and the bug is dangerous because you can never get enough. Like how many, I mean, my family says, how many shots of owls do you need? Well, I need the one I don't have.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's the shots, but it's also, I think for me, it's those moments are more impactful for me than any photo I've taken. Is the moments where I can just sit and appreciate the animal.
Absolutely.
Or when I was in India, I was so stressed about photographing tigers and how hard it was to find them. And then there was one moment where we had a tiger inside of a little body of water and nobody else was around. I was like, oh, I can actually put the camera down and just admire this animal because I don't feel the pressure of photos.
Right.
I can just enjoy this experience for what it is. Yeah. And so, it's just those are the little moments that you should really force yourself into having, I think, are going to be more impactful than the photos you come away with.
Yeah, I think so too. Just that there's something about that piece that keeps fueling it and just letting it come to you. Like you said earlier, don't force it. Let it come to you and enjoy it. I think that's really good tip for everybody, and something I have to remind myself about a lot.
A lot. It's hard. Yeah. It'll do wonders for your mental health.
Yes. Well, Phillip, it's been wonderful tonight. It's so good to see you face to face again.
Yeah. I know. I got
the Otter Gang back together again.
Yeah.
I love it.
So tell
Sandy's
people
actually in Yellowstone, the other part of the
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Sandy was with us. I've seen her posting Yellowstone. That's fun. Yeah.
You want to hear a funny story? Is her daughter wants to see wolves so bad, and they've seen like 8 or 9 coyotes, and her daughter started referring to the coyotes as wish wolves.
Because they wish they were a wolf. That's good. Yeah. I'm sure I know we've all been there, even though I do love coyotes too. I love them. But Phillip, tell people where they can find you. Where's the best place?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Scrimshaw Photography. I'm also on YouTube. Sometimes I make videos under Scrimshaw Photography. You can find me at scrimshawphotography.com. I have my website where I post most of my work and all the trips I go on. At some point, I usually create a dedicated gallery for all those photos and
nice.
Some blogs and stuff. So I'm around. Scrimshaw Photography usually is where you find me.
Yeah, and you have, I forgot to ask you, like you have maybe even leading a tour.
Yeah, so next
year.
Yep, next February, I'm taking a group of 4 people to the Mara. We do have some spots open, so if you're interested, feel free to get in touch with me. Either DM me on social media or reach out from email on my website. It's pretty much showcasing everything that the Mara has to offer. If you're willing to put in the time and come away with good photos, we just want to make sure we have a good group. And I think getting a good group to go on a photo tour is the most important thing. A lot of times people just take whoever to fill seats, but that, in my opinion, isn't really how a tour should be done. So just making sure we get a good group together who really wants to do the photography and photograph the Mara the right way. If you're interested, February 2026, I have some dates on my website if you want to check that out. Feel free to get in touch if you're interested.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, that's big plans.
I know, it's great.
That's big. I love it. I love seeing you take chances and like doing things. That's awesome.
Yeah, it should be a really good time. I mean, it's
you'll
my
be
favorite
great at
place.
it.
Yeah, it's my favorite place. I just want to share it with other people.
That's what I was going to say. It's going to come through. That joy of that place is just going to come through to other people. It'll be contagious. It'll be great.
Yeah, it should be a good time.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for co-hosting.
Yes.
Good to see you again, friend. And Phillip, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope we can all shoot again together. It'd be so fun.
Yeah, we should make it happen.
I know. We should make it happen. You guys got to get.
Next time you're going to Alaska, I'm in.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know Michelle will go to Alaska at any time.
Anytime. I'll also go to the San Juan Islands anytime.
Okay.
So,
let me know.
I'm in
I
Washington.
know. I would too.
I'm in Washington quite a bit. I was just there 2 weeks ago, and I kind of forgot that you're out there. So I'm not going to forget next time.
All right. Next time you want to come out to see whales, let me know.
That's awesome. That's great. I love this community. And thank you. Speaking of community, I really want to thank everybody for joining us live. It's been a great group tonight. And we have some great photographers coming up in April. Kelly Wassenmiller is going to be on. Deirdre Denali Rosenberg is going to be on. Carolina Norrie is going to be on. I can't wait to talk to her. And then Jackie Matichuk is coming up in early May. So we have a lot of people coming up.
Busy.
It's a busy spring. It's a very busy spring. And I'm really excited about just the family around wildlife conversations and everybody that wants to listen and join. And thank you everybody for subscribing and liking and giving me support. I literally got a note today from someone, and she probably knows who she is. She might be listening right now, but I got a note from someone today before I went on, and it literally made me cry. I could tear up right now because people are being so sweet to me. And that it means a lot when you do send me your notes and when you like and subscribe, because I mean, sometimes I really don't know if this is hitting, if it's going out there, if anybody's listening, but people are, and people are being so kind. And I know people have busy lives. So thank you so much for supporting this little podcast and this great community. So thank you guys. Thank you both for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
follow Phillip in his travels.
Yes.
Thank you.
And safe travels. Phillip's always somewhere.
Yeah.
Phillip is always somewhere. We don't need to where's Waldo. It's where's Phillip.
Where's Phillip? That's right. I'm going to create a children's book. Where's Phillip?
Where's Phillip?
Okay, guys. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in person sometime.
Thanks, Jen. Can't wait to see you.
I know. Bye, guys. Thank you.